Hey everybody, Joe Joseph here for thedailysheeple.com, and this is your news shot. I want to highlight today the work of a very, very good activist. His name is Ken McKim, and I'm going to play for you now a video of a speech that Ken did at the Rally Against Pain in Washington, D.C. in October of last year. And the reason why I bring this up is because there's been a lot of talk within Chris Christie's commission on the opioid epidemic, which is a word that's only thrown around to fearmonger. There is no epidemic with regards to pain pills and everything else. That is not what's going on. Chronic pain patients are certainly not the ones that need to be vilified here. But they are, and their quality of life is severely compromised, as it is already with the pain, let alone not being adequately treated. And so he gets into all of the reasons why this war on drugs and why this war on the chronically ill is unfounded, really unprecedented, and inhumane. I mean, it truly is a crime against humanity because they are truly killing people, for lack of a better term. I mean, that's what they're doing. You know how many people commit suicide each year because they can't get adequate relief? It's an unbelievable thing to have to face, let alone do it personally. It takes it to a whole new level. So anyway, this is Ken McKim. I'd be interested to see your comments below. Let me know if there's anybody in your family, or maybe you yourself, suffer from chronic pain. Maybe this will put things in a different perspective if you think those that are in chronic pain are just looking to pop pills and disconnect. No, it goes a lot deeper than that. So here he is, Ken McKim.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ken McKim of Don'tPunishPain.com. I came out here from Reno, Nevada. It was a very interesting flight. But I would like to talk to you a little bit about the state of chronic pain in the United States. In the year 2014, Navy veteran Kevin Keller drove his vehicle to a parking lot adjoining the VA Medical Center in Virginia, where he was going to manage his chronic pain. On this day, he exited the vehicle. He walked through the parking lot up to the entrance of the hospital, pulled out a gun, and shot himself in the head. You see, his doctors had slowly been decreasing the amount of his pain medication to the point where he was at the end of his rope. Now, we know this because of the suicide note that he left at his friend's house. This was the friend's house he had broken into to steal that friend's gun, which he would then use later on to take his own life. The note that he left, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, said something to the effect of, "My friend, I am so sorry that I broke into your house and that I took your gun, but I cannot deal with the pain any longer." Vietnam veteran Peter Ingravalo had sustained shrapnel wounds during his deployment, and after returning to the United States, began taking 25 milligrams of oxycodone every 4 hours to manage his chronic pain per the instructions of his doctors. He did this for many years without any problems, until one day he went to his mailbox and he found a letter. And that letter said, in no uncertain terms, that they would effective immediately decrease all of his medications by 70%. That's 70%. There was no explanation given for this. There was no outline in the letter as to how he should wean himself off his current level of medications. There were no alternative therapies suggested. What was contained in the letter was a threat that said if he attempted to get his pain medication from any other source, that he would immediately lose his VA benefits. And finally, 4-year-old Orlando boy Aiden Lopez had kidney cancer. His doctors recommended surgery, so he had the surgery. But soon after he was discharged, his parents were slapped upside the face by the very harsh reality that is our anti-opioid culture when they had to go to not one, not two, not three, but 4 separate pharmacies before they found one person willing to fill the pain pill prescription for their 4-year-old boy. Stories like this are only going to become more prevalent, more commonplace as the war on pain medication, and by extension, the war on the people who take that medication, continues. So you might ask yourself, how did we get here? How did we, as a supposedly enlightened society in the 21st century, become okay with the creation of an entire second class of citizens based on nothing more than their failing health? When did it become socially acceptable to live in a world where pharmacists can arbitrarily deny the pain pill prescriptions of dying cancer patients, of veterans, of chronic pain patients, of 4-year-old children? And finally, how did we become comfortable with denying our fellow citizens the basic human right to pain relief? As you might imagine, I have a few theories on this subject, which is why I'm here before you today. So if you will indulge me, I'd like to go over just a few of them with you. The first one I'm not going to spend too much time on because I already covered it in the very first video I ever did on my channel. It's called The Slow Death of Compassion for the Chronically Ill. You can watch it. It's at don'tpunishpain.com. But basically, societal attitudes have changed greatly in the last 20 years when it comes to illness and sickness. We have very little tolerance for anybody being sick more than 3 days, and you can be damn sure that if you're going to be sick more than 3 days, you better have a doctor's note before you go back to work, right? Because that's the culture we live in. There's been a lot of inspiring stories of people who have risen above their illnesses, and that's great, and we should never take away from those people that have managed to do that, but they are not representative of the majority of chronic pain patients in this country. That would be like lifting up Olympic athletes and saying everybody needs to be in that good a shape. It's just not the case. So the DEA and the CDC know this. They know the public's attitude towards chronic pain, and so it made it fairly simple to manipulate the public. And I don't even think they realize how they've been manipulated. First of all, they did it 3 ways. They did it by creating a campaign of misinformation. They did it by creating an aura of fear. And they did it by counting on the ignorance of the general public. And I say that in the best way because they don't know what they don't know. And no one's bothering to educate them on it. First off, the campaign of misinformation. Let's talk about numbers, shall we? Because the CDC and the DEA love numbers, don't they? They love numbers. Well, wait. They don't love all numbers. They love the numbers that they choose to share with other people because they don't like to share all of the numbers. So what am I talking about? Okay, there is a favorite statistic that they love to talk about from 2014 where they'll trot it out every time they say, okay, we need more regulation. This is why. They will say that 14,000 people supposedly overdosed on opioids that year. I have a problem with this number. One of the problems I have with it is that it continues to change because those of us who have followed this for a couple of years realize that that number wasn't always 14,000. At one point, it was 28,000. I'm not a mathematician, but I know that there's a big difference between 28,000 and 14,000. So what happened to those other 14,000 people? Did they just come back to life? No, of course not. What happened was enough people started asking questions. Enough people started shining enough of a spotlight on this that they had to do what they should have done from the very beginning, which is separate the opioid overdoses from fentanyl and heroin overdoses, which are very, very different things, are they not? But do you think that when they were saying it was 28,000, they were explaining that differentiation to the public? No. So the public just thinks that 28,000 chronic pain patients kicked over from taking their pain medication, and that is not the truth in any way, shape, or form. So we've gone from 28,000 deaths to 14,000 deaths. Is that number right? No. Do you know how I know it's incorrect? Because the CDC says it's not correct. They said it's not correct. They said that at least 1/5 of the overdoses reported had no medical information as to what medications were involved. So right away, we go from 28,000 to 14,000. We can reduce that by 1/5, so now we're down to 11,200. Is that the final number? No. Do you know why it's not the final number? It's not the final number because we have no idea how many people actually died because of the opioids or because they were taking them in conjunction with other pills that their physicians may not have even known about. Because I'll tell you what, physicians are not spending a lot of time explaining drug interactions to all their patients because the average statistic says that you spend 7 minutes with the doctor if you're lucky. If you're very, very lucky. So that 11,200 is not the final number. It's lower than even that because they cannot definitively say that everybody who supposedly overdosed actually had a prescription to have those medications in the first place. Why is that important? Because another foundational leg of their argument for more regulation of opioids is this problem they call diversion. So diversion is just a fancy word for theft. And they go on and on about how opioids have such a high rate of diversion. Well, if that's true, then there's a good chance that a number of those 11,200 leftover people probably shouldn't have had those pills in the first place. So they frame this argument, but they don't explain that to the public. And so the public is thinking, wait, it's the chronic pain patients who are diverting all of these pills. I have a problem with that because there's a lot of them being stolen. And this is all from the CDC, by the way. From the year 2000 to the year 2003, there were over 6 million opioid analgesics stolen. Do you really think that it's chronic pain patients that are doing that? I don't believe it. You know why? Because there are 6,500 pharmacy break-ins every year in the United States. It's drug dealers. It is criminal elements. It's people who manage to break into 6,500 pharmacies a year that are creating this glut of illicit pain medication that people who shouldn't be taking it in the first place are then overdosing for it. All of that is getting lumped in with chronic pain patients, and it's absolutely unacceptable. The second part, so they create the campaign of misinformation. The next thing they have to do is create the campaign of fear. And in this point, I have got to give them credit. What they're doing is horrible, and they're bad people for doing it, but they are brilliant because this is all marketing. Their entire stance is marketing to the American people who don't know any better. So they have, from day one, used the word epidemic to describe this because it's a scary word. Epidemic is a frightening word, and they know that. They know that when the average person hears the word epidemic, they know that people are going to go to the worst case scenario in their head. They're going to think of millions, if not billions of people dead and dying in the streets like something out of the movie Outbreak or Contagion. They count on that. They know that when the average person hears the word epidemic, that they're going to think of something like the Black Death, which, depending on which website you read, killed between 70 million and 200 million people. Those are scary numbers. Or maybe you hear the word epidemic and you think of the Spanish flu outbreak of 1918, 20 million dead. Again, a very high number, a very scary number. Or maybe you think of something a little bit more recent in our history, the AIDS epidemic. And AIDS is still very much a problem, by the way, because in the year 2015, 1.1 million people died of AIDS-related illnesses worldwide. Those are real epidemics. And you think, well, Ken, how can anybody take that seriously then? Because you've got these high numbers. You've got 200 million, you've got 20 million dead, you've got 1.1 million dead, and then you've got 28,000. Whoops, no, wait, sorry, 14,000. Whoop, no, wrong again, 11,200. Maybe, we don't really know. That doesn't stack up, right? The problem is that the damage is done as soon as the public hears the word epidemic. because it's a frightening word, and they automatically assign all the fear that would go along with something like the Black Death to whatever comes next. So it doesn't matter that the number is relatively small, because they're already thinking the worst case scenario. And they know that. So this whole marketing that they've done to the general public on the so-called epidemic has been brilliant and extremely damaging to chronic pain patients. The third thing that they count on is the fact that most people do not understand the difference between addiction and physical dependence. They are two very, very, very different things. They are two very different things. Addicts. Addiction is a disease. It's its own thing. The brain of an addict is not the same as the brain of a normal person. It's just not. Addicts will pursue the object of their addiction no matter what it is, despite ever-mounting negative consequences. As they lose their jobs, their homes, their families, their money, their very dignity, they will continue to pursue that object of their addiction. That's one of the classic hallmarks of addiction, is the pursuit of that object at all costs. Chronic pain patients take their pain medication, and you know what happens? They go about the rest of their day as best they can. They live the life that they can live by taking those pain medications. What's happening when you take an opioid, and I'm not a medical doctor, but this is how I explained it to myself. What happens when you take an opioid is this. Your body is perfectly capable of producing its own opioids. We call them endorphins. So you start taking pain pills to supplement that, because your own natural endorphins are not enough to combat the pain of your illness. And then your body goes, oh wait, this is kind of nice. I don't have to stress about this. I don't have to make all the endorphins myself. We're getting pain relief from outside. This is great. I can kick back just a little bit. So then when you take the pain patient off the pain medication, your body's going, wait, oh no, I'm not getting this from the outside anymore. I have to remember how to do this. I can't remember. If they were a contestant on one of those Food Network shows, they'd be going, your body's going, wait a minute, I have a recipe for my own internal opioids, and I don't know where I put it, and I don't know what I'm doing, and that's withdrawal. You know what happens after that? Well, you're in a lot of pain, but you're fine because you're not an addict, because physical withdrawal is not the same thing as addiction. When an addict can't get his fix, it ruins his entire day. It's all-consuming. He can't stop thinking about it. He might come out clean the other side after he goes through his withdrawals or her withdrawals, but it's a lifelong problem. And without constant support and constant vigilance, they slip right back into it. A chronic pain patient will go on about their life. They will figure out a way. Chronic pain patients take their medications so that they can try to recapture a small portion of the lives that they had before their illness took hold, before the pain took over every aspect of their existence. That's why they take pain medication. They don't take it to get high. You don't get high from chronic pain medication after you've taken it for a while. It's the same thing as if you are not sick and you take Theraflu or you take NyQuil. You're going to get a little bit of a buzz because you're not sick. When you have the worst case scenario flu where you're shaking and you're sweating and you feel like crap, when you take your Theraflu, are you feeling 100% better? No. You're just getting to the point by taking that medication where you might be able to get a little bit of rest, where you might be able to rebound a little bit and maybe get better. Except for the chronic pain patient, you're never completely better. Addicts take their drugs so that they can escape something in their lives. Chronic pain patients take their medication so that they can have a life, as much of one as they can. And people do not understand the difference between dependence and addiction, and the CDC and the DEA know that. They don't go out of their way to educate people on it. And that's why we're at the stage that we are at in the United States today. Because the public has been misled and they don't even know by how much. So you might ask, Ken, what's going to happen next? Well, I'm not a psychic, I'm not a fortune teller, I don't have my own TARDIS, but I can guess based on just the recent past, and I'm going to tell you it doesn't look good. Because in 2011, the governor of Florida decided he was going to crack down on the pill mills. And that's fine. You should do that. There are doctors who are overprescribing. It's a fact. There are people that are taking the pills and selling them or otherwise abusing them. That's a fact. I don't deny that. But if you want to use the medical metaphor, the governor of Florida, instead of approaching it surgically and excising the few doctors and the few patients that were the problem, he decided to go the military route and drop a nuclear bomb of legislation on the entire state that has left hundreds of thousands of innocent people caught up in the blast of that legislative bomb. So, yes, in 12 months after he did that, the rate of opioid overdoses went down. You know what went up? Heroin overdoses by 39% in the same 12-month period. That's what happens when you have governmental officials, either at a state or a federal level, that choose to overreact to a problem that's not as big of a problem as they would have you believe. You know, I have to believe, because this is how I have to believe that people, that people, by and large, are good people. That they want the best for their fellow citizens, for each other. And that a lot of them have just turned a blind eye because they don't know better. The fact of the matter is that the chronically ill are not junkies. They are our coworkers. They're people you see when you go shopping. They're people that go out to dinner, that you see at the movies. They're your family, they're your coworkers, they're your veterans, they're your sons, and they're your daughters. And they deserve better. They deserve better from their fellow citizens, and they deserve better from their government. This just, it has to stop. And as a nation, we just have to rediscover our humanity and our empathy, and we have to get back to a place of compassion without conditions, and this is where it starts. So, thank you all for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you.